Good morning everyone, this is lesson 2 of our Salut tutorials. So today we're going to be focused on when things start to get really difficult and how we can actually try to solve problems. But before we delve into that, some little birdies have been telling me that some of you are starting to try to learn the piece without listening to it at all, which I would not advise. You have to sort of know how something goes first, otherwise you are just in no man's land. Because music kind of exists out in the air. It's a song and it's a dance and it is sound. So you have to have context, and therefore I would go and listen to the piece. After you've listened to it a few times, see if you can sing the beginning of the melody. See if you can dance to it, or you can perhaps make up a story to it. If you cannot hear how it goes in your mind, it's really, really difficult to then try to do that on an instrument. So I can't advise enough that you go and listen to it. So now I want to talk to you about how to make something easier when it seems like it's just impossible to get better and that it will never get better. So for me, there are two ways to really improve. One is through method and repetition, and the other one is through experimentation and being as creative as possible. So if you think of the first one as if you are a really excellent soldier that fits into line, or perhaps like being the best daughter or son in the whole world for a parent, where you're doing everything that you're told, you're being extremely obedient and you're not thinking too hard because you're not really questioning the things that you're being told. If you think of the second one, the experimentation one, as a bit like you're being really rebellious. So you're being bold and confident, you are thinking for yourself, and you're trying out anything that you can think of that's going to make something better. You're problem solving for yourself. So today's lesson is going to be structured in two parts. First, the method and repetition, and the second is the experimentation. In order to test out both, we're going to take just the first few bars of Salut and pick out what's challenging. So I have broken these up into 5 categories. The first is starting with a beautiful sound. Is always scary, is always difficult. The first sound you make is always a little bit like, oh, how's it going to come out? The second is when we shift from the first finger back to the first finger and back again. That can be a little bit tricky. A lot of people grip hold of their instruments too tight. So we're going to work on the basis for which you have to be free enough to make that happen, and then we're going to go through a routine of just repeating it and repeating it. The third generally is intonation, which of course is a difficulty with all string instruments. It's just hard to play in tune. The fourth is that string crossing that you have in the first bar, and the fifth is the bow distribution. So how much bow do you use for which part of the piece? Right, so let's start by being extremely good soldiers. We'll be diligent and obedient. We're going to make clean decisions before we start, and then we're going to repeat. So let me emphasize at this point, I am giving you examples. These are my ideas of how to make these clear decisions, but those decisions, the answers to those things, you have to come up with yourself, because only you know how your body feels. Only you know whether something that you're doing is making you sound better or making you sound worse. So as I said yesterday, you have to stay active and solving problems for yourself. Right, so beautiful sound. Most important thing, we're going to get my violin. Most important thing before you begin to play is the breath, and do not underestimate how important that is to get right, because you cannot possibly play if your breath is stuck. So that is going to be the first thing that we do when we're repeating right now. So breath. The second thing is the motion before you play. So we're going to collectively be thinking about how do we breathe and prepare ourselves for that first bow. And that is the same whether you're doing a down bow or an up bow. You have to be disciplined about which bow you're doing and stay consistent with it for this part of the lesson and for this type of kind of diligent and repetitive practice. Then we are simply going to play that first note, but then we're going to stop. And we're going to be also disciplined about that. You're not going to get carried away with how the melody goes. You're not going to keep playing. We're just playing the first note because we are working on one thing which is how to begin with a beautiful sound. So we have to be disciplined, we have to not go off track because things don't sound right. We've got to not get distracted, carry out what we decided to do as if it's a mission we've been given, orders we've been given, and do it with very clear objectives. So I'm going to do all of these things, think about them all before we start, and then I'm going to expect you to repeat that, I would suggest about 20 times, and it can be more or less if you need or want it to. So breathe. Now breathe with the motion. And now we play that first note and stop. I want you to think of one more thing before we go for the repetition, which is this motion is continuous. I don't breathe in and then stop breathing and then start to play. No, we're going to keep the motion going, keep that motion being continuous, almost like you're drawing circles. Okay, so breathe, motion before we start, drawing circles, play first note, stop. That wasn't very good, I'm just going to keep going. That was a little bit better. I'm sinking into the string. Making sure I don't stop or get stuck before I play. I'm just being bold with it. I'm going to do a few up bows now. Okay, you get the idea. It's repeat, repeat, repeat. Now we're going to move on to the first finger going from its position back down and back up again. So one general thing I want to say about that is there are a few ways to shift. Try to decide what you're doing beforehand so that when you're repeating, it's not messy. It's not repeating of lots of different things. It's the repeating of a specific motion, which will allow your mind to get used to it and your hand to get used to it. So I would see, what do you find most comfortable? For me, I don't find shifting with the thumb and the whole hand is necessary. I can just basically collapse this hand down and back up again. I'm just demonstrating with the D major one right now, but it's the same for both. It's just a tiny, tiny little movement. Okay, so before we play this, we're going to have a checklist. Relax the hand, check where the thumb is. You're going to play that first note, and then we're going to play the three, then stop, start again. Relax the hand, give it a little wiggle. Check where the thumb is, that it's in a good supportive position for the hand. Check that first note. And now we go. Stop. Done. Repeat. Relax the hand. Check where the thumb is. Play that first note. Make sure it's nice and tuned. And for the E's. Okay. Stop. Repeat. You get the idea. Okay, now we're going to go into intonation. So, intonation, when you're practicing intonation, it is so important to not do this. So fun to do. It's really important not to do that. That is not a helpful way to practice intonation. You have to be extremely disciplined with the practicing of intonation. Right, so for this for this, the beginning of this piece, we want to start from the base of the position you're in. So for the D major, it is 3rd position. For the E major, it's 4th position. Use your first finger as your anchor, so your hand feels secure and nice and comfortable. So use that first finger, then you want to count up from there. And then the things that we're going to do are to play very softly, use very little bow, and play each note evenly so we have no concerns with the rhythm. Just going to demonstrate. You'll see I am not adjusting anything. Even if those were out of tune, I was not going to adjust them. So I've now got that 3rd finger. I know where that 3rd finger is. We're going to play softly. We're going to use little bow, and we're going to constantly check that the hand is relaxed and in a sensitive state. And when I say sensitive, it's so that it can feel where it should be on the string. Okay, so we're going to do the first 4 bars. Start with check with the D string. With the E major people, check with the E string. Where that note is now, and now here is how we're going to practice intonation. That's enough for now. Stop. Repeat. The whole time I'm staying free and sensitive. I'm not gripping with the left hand, and I'm not pushing. I'm not desperately trying to control everything. You're trying to feel your way around what the intonation is, and you want your inner ear to be working as hard as possible. Count up from the bass note. It's so important to play softly and not use too much bow. Listen, 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 listen. Listen really carefully. Okay, stop, repeat. What happens if a finger is very out of tune? For example, my advice would be to then stop, work out what it was. Was it sharp or was it flat? In my case, it was sharp. Try to program your mind in a calm way before you start again. But only do that once. So when you go to repeat it, if it's wrong again, I wouldn't keep then restarting like that terrible demonstration I began with. We can't do things like that. So I would make sure that you're very, very disciplined about how to repeat. And if something really goes wrong, make a mental note, then try to correct that little thing, and then we go through the process again. String crossing. So put the bow on the A string, put the bow on the D string, then check the elbow for both. Then we want to do 2 different things for string crossing. The first one is to use the arm and the flow, and the second one is to use much less motion, and we're just focusing a little bit more on how the hand helps with string crossing. So the first one, A string, we feel where that is. D string, feel where that is. Ignore my left hand, we're just going to do open strings. So we feel both. And now we're going to do once using our arm to help us. See how much movement I'm using? Great. And now we're going to do the opposite, which is less bow and really bringing to life all of these fingers. I'm really using the fingers. And with the fingers, I can feel the string getting closer together because I'm actually managing to get from one string to the next by using my fingers. I'm almost playing them together. Okay, so we're going to do those two things back to back. Using the whole arm. And now we're going to do really close and very careful, utilizing fingers. And remember to breathe when you're doing those smaller ones, because a lot of the time we stop breathing when we do small motions. So I want you to do using the arm and flow, then much more condensed, and you do them next to each other, and you repeat that as many times as you can. Not too many times, I would say like 10. Something that is manageable but is still going to have an impact. Now with bow distribution, make a decision about exactly what we're doing. I would suggest full bow, half bow, then quarter, quarter. And again, we're not using the left hand for now. Right? Great. So you're literally going to do that, stop, repeat. And all you're focused on is using the whole bow, nice big confident bow, then half bow, and then less, less. Okay, so now we're going to just spend a couple of minutes being rebellious. So with all the ways that we can experiment with creating a beautiful sound, what are those? I would start off with singing and dancing. Notice how you breathe. What do you feel? Use your imagination. Try things out. We're not trying to fit into a box anymore. We're trying to literally use the most creative parts of our mind to say, how can we make this sound as good as possible? So try starting softly, try starting loudly, try taking a shorter intake of breath before you start playing. Try and take a lovely big intake of breath before you start playing. Try lifting up your elbow, try dropping your elbow, try tilting your bow to the side, try playing with a really flat hair. Try to pretend like you are playing to a baby trying to go to sleep. So you're trying to play so gently and sweetly. Or try pretending like you're whispering to somebody. Or maybe like you're walking out in the countryside or by the sea and it's all carefree. Or try to imagine how somebody would perhaps move or dance to this. Try starting on the fingerboard and sneaking into the sound. Maybe try with an up bow. Experiment, try absolutely anything and everything. So if I would pick one more category to experiment with, is also the bow distribution. So that one was about creating that beautiful sound at the beginning. This is the bow distribution. So if we now just forget everything that we were saying before about being soldiers and about those really clear instructions about a whole bow, half bow, and two shorter bows. Now just try whatever comes to mind. So I'm just going to show you what me experimenting with something like that might look like. So I'm literally trying absolutely anything, and the only thing I'm worried about is what I'm hearing, what I'm imagining, and trying something different. And it does not matter if it sounds terrible. Make sure that you are experimenting as much as possible. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was clear. That's it for today. For tomorrow, I'm going to be circling the 10 most difficult parts of this piece. And I'm going to be giving you some top tips on how to overcome the difficult hurdles. I think that's it. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.